Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargav, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we will talk about the reasons why the draconian Public Safety Act has been slapped against former J&K Chief Ministers Omar Abdullah and Mehbooba Mufti. We will also talk about the fashion designer Wendell Rodricks, who passed away on Wednesday. But first, we talk about Hafiz Saeed. Earlier this week, Hafiz Saeed, the founder of the terrorist organization Lashkar-e-Taiba, was convicted by a Pakistan court in 2 terror financing cases and sentenced to 5.5 years in prison. Saeed and other leaders of his outfit were booked in July last year under terror financing charges. In this segment, Shubhajit Roy, who reports on matters of foreign affairs for the Indian Express, joins us to talk about the charges against him and what his conviction means. Shubhajit, could you talk about Hafiz Saeed and what his role as the founder of Lashkar-e-Taiba been?
So, Hafiz Saeed is a UN-designated terrorist who founded the Lashkar-e-Taiba, which has traditionally conducted terrorist attacks on Indian interests, on Indian territory, and it operates freely from Pakistan. There is enough evidence to support that it has been supported by Pakistan's intelligence wing, the ISI, and it is most barbaric terrorist attack that it conducted on India was the Mumbai terror attack in 2008, which 166 people were killed. Apart from that, he's also been involved in other attacks, like the Pathankot attack. In fact, it also collaborated in the Parliament attack in 2001. Pakistan government at that point of time took him into custody for the first time. And ever since that time, he has been in and out of Pakistan's jails following any international pressure on its terror activities. So that has been his sort of background. There is a $10 million bounty on him by the US government because, as you remember, there were some US nationals who were killed in the Mumbai terror attack as well, out of the 166 people who were killed. So all in all, he has been the mastermind and plotter and planner of the 26/11 attack, which is the biggest charge that he faces from the Indian government and Indian authorities.
So, Hafiz Saeed and other leaders of his outfit were booked in July last year. Could you talk about the kind of pressure that Pakistan was under by the international community and the attempts that have been made past to arrest him, and how did the arrest in July finally come about?
So Pakistan has been under pressure from the Financial Action Task Force, which is a global watchdog on financial issues, especially it tracks terrorist financing. Pakistan has been under of the FATF, which is a Paris-based body, and it has since January 2017 been under the scanner of the Financial Action Task Force. And in the last 2 years, it has made some attempts to take action against Hafiz Saeed. And this last July, the cases that were filed against him, there were about 23 cases on charges of terrorist financing and facilitation were filed against him, were part of Pakistan's commitment to take action against terrorist financing. And that's how it took those actions. And Pakistan's Punjab province counterterrorism department had registered these cases in 3 places, in Lahore, Gujranwala, and Multan. So the Financial Action Task Force is meeting from February 16th to the 21st. And before that 6-day meeting, Pakistan has taken these steps. And it should be seen in that context that Pakistan is trying to show that it is serious in taking action and fulfilling its commitments, which it had made to the FATF, which is watching Pakistan's moves on terrorist financing. So if you remember last time such an action had been taken by Pakistan was before Pakistan Prime Minister was meeting the US President Donald Trump. So this action needs to be seen in that context, and that's visible from the Indian officials' comments that have been made.
last time in 2018, the Financial Action Task Force had grey listed Pakistan. And now, right now, Pakistan is taking all these steps, but if it doesn't, it is under the threat that the Action Task Force will downgrade it to a blacklist. Could you talk about, if, let's say, Pakistan is blacklisted, the kind of consequences it will have for it?
So Pakistan has taken these actions because it is afraid that it may be pushed into the blacklist or may remain on the grey list. And it is trying hard to get out of the grey list, because being in the grey list means that, your credit rating goes down and international investors will be discouraged from investing into Pakistan. And Pakistan's economy right now is not in a good shape. And because of that reason, Pakistan wants more investments and does not want to continue on the grey list or even pushed into the blacklist. So that is the economic situation in which it is operating, and it's taking these steps to avert and prevent this kind of situation where it may be pushed towards the blacklist or remain in the grey list. But having said that, I would also say that, this is not the first time it has taken such action against Hafiz Saeed. There are at least half a dozen times it has taken such action since 2001, when it was first taken action against Hafiz Saeed after the parliament attack. And ever since then, each time there is a major terror attack, in 2006 after the Mumbai train bombings, or after the 2008 Mumbai 26/11 terror attacks, and thereafter in several such occasions, it has taken such action. So the Indian government has said that the step is to be noted, but the efficacy of the decision is yet to be seen. And Pakistan has to show commitment and take action against the perpetrators of Mumbai and Pathankot as well. So it has clearly drawn the line that anything short of that will be seen as a cosmetic step by Pakistan.
Next, we talk about Jammu and Kashmir. Last week on Thursday, after 6 months of placing former Chief Ministers Mehbooba Mufti and Omar Abdullah under preventive detention, the J&K administration invoked the stringent and draconian Public Safety Act against them. Mufti and Abdullah, along with several other leaders, had been under preventive detention since the abrogation of Article 370 last August. Omar's father and parliamentarian Farooq Abdullah is already in detention under the PSA. He had actually been the first mainstream political leader and sitting parliamentarian in J&K to be booked under the Act. And a day after this happened, PDP leader Naeem Akhtar was also slapped with the PSA. It is important to note that the Act allows the administration to detain a person without trial for 3 to 6 months. The Act was first cleared in 1978 by a government led by Farooq Abdullah's father and then Chief Minister Sheikh Abdullah as an administrative measure that aimed at keeping timber smugglers out of circulation. However, it has been misused by successive governments against political opponents to stifle dissent. In this segment, Bashaarat Masood, who has been reporting on this story, joins us on a call from Srinagar to talk about the reasons given by the administration for these PSAs. Also, just a heads up, the network was very poor, so the call quality is not that great. We apologize for that. Bashaarat, for the past 6 months, a number of political leaders of Jammu and Kashmir have been under preventive detention, including both Mehbooba Mufti and Omar Abdullah. They'd been under house arrest. So why has the J&K administration now evoked PSA against them?
Well, we need to understand that all the mainstream political leaders, including the 3 former chief ministers, Mehbooba Mufti, Omar Abdullah, and his father Farooq Abdullah, were arrested under preventive detention on August 5th. This month, they completed their 6 months under preventive detention, and it was becoming now legally untenable to keep them under preventive detention, because at maximum you can keep somebody under preventive detention for 6 months. So government had no choice. Either they had to release them or they had to find some other mechanism. And the available mechanism with the government was to invoke PSA against public safety mechanism, wherein they can be booked for 3 to 6 months without trial. And that was the mechanism available for government, and that's why they have invoked PSA against these political leaders.
Apart from, of course, Mehbooba Mufti and Omar Abdullah, another political leader, PDP leader, Naeem Akhtar, PSA was also invoked against him.
We need to say it is not just this Omar Abdullah and Mehbooba and Naeem Akhtar who have been booked under PSA. There are so many other leaders from the mainstream camp, like we have National Conference General Secretary Ali Mohammad Saga, we have PDP Sartaj Madni, we have National Council Hilal alone. All these have been booked under Public Safety Act.
Bashaarat has been doing stories about the police dossier that lists the reasons why PSA has been issued against these leaders. And some of these reasons, he says, are bizarre. For example, against Omar Abdullah, one of the grounds for detention is that his influence was so much that he could convince his electorate to vote in huge numbers, even during peak of militancy and poll boycotts.
For example, Mehbooba Mufti's PSA, her daughter said it is slander. Like they have compared her to some medieval queen, Kota Rani, called her who had an insidious character. And they have talked about her marital status, which normally have nothing to do with the PSA.
In the dossier, there are also mentions of Mehbooba Mufti tweeting about triple talaq or talking about condition of roads in the region. He says that statements that politicians generally use are being used against them. In other bizarre statements, one of the dossiers states that the green color of the party reflects its radical origin and that PDP's symbol has been taken from the Muslim United Front. In the police dossier against Naeem Akhtar, who has been a close confidant of Mufti, one of the reasons states that he advised people to read Saeed Gilani's autobiography.
So these kind of things are there in these police dossiers and also sometimes in the grounds of detention, which makes it really bizarre.
You know, Mehbooba Mufti's daughter, Iltija Mufti, has been raising her voice and rebuking this decision. What are some of the things that she has been saying against it?
Iltija has been, from day one, she has been rebutting these police dossier and the grounds of detention point by point. She has rebutted them. But what's more important in her sayings is that she says that why there is need for surrender. If you have to book my mother, she says that if you have to book my mother, you can have a dignified dossier. If you want to accuse him of something, you can do that in a dignified way. Why do you bring her marital status to invoke PSA against her? Or why do you compare her to some medieval queen like Kota Rani? Or why do you have to talk about her character? These have nothing to do with PSAs. She is talking about other points as well, like the TV. She has also given the point-by-point rebuttal of them. But her main focus is that why do you need to use slanderous language against her mother? Like using the word daddy's girl. She has said, she's saying clearly, if Prime Minister Narendra Modi can be an obedient son of her mother, and why can't her mother be an obedient daughter of her father? So why need to use the words like daddy's girl, Kota Rani, or for example, like insidious character, or like divisive politician, these words like. So she is actually saying that there was no need for slanderous language. It is painful for daughter.
So with these decisions by the administration, what sense do we get about what the government is thinking, what actions it can take in the future, and, in what way it is going to deal with the political leadership in the region?
What we have been witnessing from last 6 months, as far as mainstream politics in Kashmir is concerned, from these things like slapping PSA against Farooq Abdullah, Omar Abdullah, Mehbooba Mufti, and some other mainstream political leaders, it is evident that government of India is not interested in continuing political process with the mainstream camp here, the existing mainstream camp here. So we do see, after these kind of actions like PSAs against the political leaders, we don't see any forward political movement in Kashmir right now. What we see in Kashmir is the government of New Delhi is trying to impose or install a new set of leaders in Kashmir. So there are always being talks about a third front coming up in Kashmir led by Mr. Altaf Bukhari, one of the former PDP members. And most of those guys, most of the politicians, who are out, who have readiness to join the third front, they have been released. They have been let out. So it seems that the government is thinking about the emergence of creating of a new political class in the valley. The experiments have been already done in past. We had such an experiment in 1953 when Sheikh Abdullah was arrested and Bakshi was installed as the Prime Minister of Kashmir. Or later on in 1984, we had a similar experiment when there was a coup against Farooq Abdullah and his brother-in-law, Ghulam Ahmad Shah, was emerges a new leader with a new political class. So I think that, again, an experiment is going on, that a new political class is being installed in Kashmir.
And last, we talk about Wendell Rodricks. On Wednesday, one of India's leading fashion designers, Wendell Rodricks, passed away at his home in Goa. Rodricks had only been 59, and the news came as a shock to everyone in the community. Ektaa Malik, who writes on fashion for the Indian Express, had been there at the Lakme Fashion Week when the news broke out. She now joins us on a call from Mumbai to talk about what made Rodricks stand out and his contributions to the world of fashion. You've been in Bombay covering the Lakme Fashion Week, and you were telling me about the moment when the news broke out.
So this was like late Tuesday evening, and we were all in a show, and I saw that my editor was calling me. I got a call and I said, I'll call you back. And then she messaged me that Wendell Rodricks had died. And she was like, you must all be knowing it there. And we were all like, no, nobody knows here. And the moment we stepped out, and we were all trying to confirm whether it has actually happened or it was a rumor. And then we did get the confirmation that Wendell Rodricks, ace fashion designer of India, had really passed away of a heart attack. And slowly, steadily, the news spread because it was a big show that was about to happen in the evening, and the crowd sort of swelled up, and the news spread, and there was a general sort of a larger sadness that sort of, enveloped the fashion fraternity that was there. So to be there, and he was very instrumental in shaping the Lakme Fashion Week. He was one of the first mentors of the Gen Next batch that came out of Lakme and everything. So it was all kind of like surreal, being at a fashion week, which he sort of helped set up, and hearing the news of his passing.
Could you talk about what led to his rise? What made him stand out from other Indian designers?
So Wendell, when he started off in India in 1989, he set up his first show. Earlier, he had worked with Lakme in their branding and stuff like that. He came up with these like avant-garde sort of designs, with really high slits, plunging necklines, very non-Indian in their essence. And he's the one who started resort wear in India. Like he fashioned something called the bikini sari, which can only be worn by like super slick bodies. And his designs were very, very eclectic, very brave. He was one of the first people to sort of push the boundary beyond the Indian embroidery, the Indian embellishments, the Indian, everything gold, everything silver sort of thing.
You were also telling me in a lot of ways he was an antithesis of high fashion. Could you elaborate on that?
So Wendell was somebody who was very, very well-read, very well-traveled. In fact, his Instagram was a delight to follow. Every week, he would be traveling somewhere exotic and, putting up photos from the chef to his hotel room, to what he was eating, to what he was wearing. It was a delight. As well-traveled, well-spoken man, he was also very affable and very, very approachable. He would always pick up his phone, always be available to the media, and just was a delight to talk to. And he did not subscribe to the usual la-di-da sort of approach that many established fashion designers in India have. He was a complete antithesis of Indian high fashion.
Apart from, the things that you mentioned in terms of fashion, he was also sort of known for his activism, which translated in fashion and, in terms of what he did in Goa.
So in 2016, he sort of retired from his label, and he just led a very silent, quiet sort of domestic life in Goa with his partner. But his biggest cause till date, I think, remains Goa. He lived that place. He loved that place. He is also establishing the Goa Museum there, the Moda Goa Museum. And everything Goa, he was so passionate about, be it the food, be it the weaves, be it tourism. He also, was very actively against the resort week, the resort fashion week, because it was harming the environment. So a lot of causes around Goa, he was very passionate and vocal about the environment, the people, and just how that state needs to be nurtured and preserved for posterity. I think that became his real passion project after he retired from fashion full time. And in addition to Goa, he was also a very vocal supporter of gay rights. He flaunted, I think, his domesticity, his friends, and he, in fact, put up a lovely costume when the FDCI did a grand finale celebrating the repealment of the LGBTQ Act. It was a lovely he used all the 7 colors of the LGBTQ flag, and it was a lovely outfit, and he was a very, very vocal supporter of LGBTQIA rights in India.
I mean, him being one of the leading designers in India, I imagine a lot of models would owe at least part of their success to him.
I think he had a keen eye for spotting talent, be it Anushka, be it Deepika, Lisa Ray. All these people were mentored by him. They were nurtured by him. In fact, he was very instrumental in Deepika getting Om Shanti Om. The story goes as such, that he spotted her and realized that she could do well beyond the ramp. She was already modeling for him. He then, I think, made a call to Malaika Arora. Malaika Arora then called her Farah Khan. And that's how Deepika got Om Shanti Om. That's how the story goes. And Lisa Ray was also mentored by him, even within the fashion fraternity. Like, he's mentored a lot of young talent. Like Masaba Gupta was very close to him and stuff like that. I think Wendell, as a person, went beyond just his space, his designs, his creations. He really wanted to engage with the other world in every aspect possible.
What do you think he would be most remembered by?
I think Wendell was a resident conscience keeper of the Indian fashion fraternity. Like, it was a job he took very seriously. And even till his last days, till when the Grammy Awards were announced, he'd put up an Insta post where he had taken down 5-6 eclectic outfits and he had put them together. And the caption, I think, read, "Sanity style," or something like that. You decide. And it had Billy Porter in it and stuff like that. It was just very like him doing what he does best. He was unapologetically critical of things and people. And like he's also called out Deepika for wearing a Zac Posen gown for the Met Gala last year. Same for Aishwarya Rai wearing the floral outfit at the Paris Fashion Week last year. He was just like sack your stylist, you know. And same for Priyanka Chopra's outfit at the Grammys this year. So he would say things that most of us think, but he won't say it because of, I don't know, we're scared, hierarchy, and we don't want to upset Bollywood stars. Wendell didn't care. I think Wendell will be most remembered for speaking out his heart and mind, unapologetically, just being who he was and not filtering anything.
You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show, as always, was edited and mixed by our producer, Joshua Thomas. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.